All right.
Hi, my name is Janine Miller, and I'm with Pieces of Victory. And today we have on our show is Brian Cardoza. He's the author of The Unexpected Victim, and I'm excited today to share his book with him and then share his coping mechanisms, which are his art classes that he has online. But right now, we are going to tap into a most difficult subject on child abuse, and that is the crux of his book, The Unexpected Victim. And Brian, why don't you tell us at, about the beginning of your story? How old were you when the abuse started happening, and a little bit about your background?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. I was the second son. I was the youngest son of a woman who had homesteaded 174 acres in Alaska, and the son of a Air Force military. And when I was 6, my father left my mom, and my mom had a psychotic break uh, when that happened. So much so that
I'm sorry, your
I'll
father
never,
left your mother and your mother, you were
yeah,
saying,
my mother had a psychotic break.
Brian?
Yep.
That, go ahead, tell me about your mother and the psychotic break during that
Yeah.
time of divorce.
So nobody really knew that at the point in time, my mom had suffered from pretty severe mental health issues. She'd always been a little bit off, but not like she got. The day he left, I'll never forget it because it was probably the most horrendous day of my one of the most horrendous days of my life. Um, I was My mom picked me up from preschool, and we were coming back, and I remember because it was a Datsun V210, a little white two-door car that was just hideous, and it was in the middle of winter. It was in December in Alaska, and it was cold, but it was like colder in the car than outside. Like so, I knew something was not right. And I we pull up into the driveway, and in the driveway, it even snowing. It was Alaska, you know what I mean? So I, like a naive child, I had like this Norman Rockwell picture in my head. I'm gonna run in, get my dad, and we were gonna go shovel the driveway, and we are gonna have a snowball fight, and we were gonna have this entire menagerie of just amazingness, right?
Right.
So I go running into the house, and they were in a separation. They were getting a divorce. So he was in a different room of the house. So I run into that room, and I put this in my book because it was the only way I could describe it. So I go running into his room to get him, and the room is so clean. There's not even the memory of a cigarette in the room. It is just spotless. And so I knew exactly what that meant. I knew exactly that he meant that he was gone. And so I started crying.
Oh,
Because like he, my, years later, I realized he was never really a father at all, but he was just gone. And I put this in my book, and this is when I knew what it felt like to have a serial killer behind you, because at the back of my neck, I just felt like all the hairs and everything just like raise up. And my mom said these exact words to me: "He left because you couldn't make him love this family."
oh my God. That's
So
awful. That
I
is
I
awful.
so that's what I was told at 6 years old. Well,
Let
I
me
was
just interrupt you for a second. Just to blame your child for a divorce is just that's abuse. That's mental abuse, big time.
yeah,
You cannot blame a child for a divorce. That's just awful. It's despicable. But
yeah,
carry on. And unfortunately, that's just scratching the surface of what.
yeah. I wish it kind of had stopped there. But lo and behold, but wait, it gets worse. So she tells me that, and that was the day the mental and physical abuse started. That was the day. Those were the days when I would start getting beaten with coat hangers and
Oh
broomsticks,
God.
and was given jobs that my older brother didn't have to do. During that time,
So she
my
was
mother,
favoring the other sibling and
yeah,
not you.
yeah,
Kind of like
because,
a child called It. I don't know if you've ever read a
yeah,
child called It.
yeah,
Okay, that's the same exact thing is where that's why a lot of other siblings will say, "Well, I was never abused." Well,
yeah,
because you weren't singled
yeah.
out.
So I read his book,
It was very
um,
horrific.
because a friend of mine gave me it, and they were like, you need to read this because people need to know your story. Um, so that's the reason why I wrote my book, is because like if David could do that, then I could do it. So
I'm curious. Did you have the same sort of format? Do you have the same sort of format as David in his book called Child Called It? I did the same formatting where it's present tense. I'm in the present tense. I'm a 16-year-old girl going through this. Did you
no,
do something
no,
similar?
mine is I hate to use the word whimsical. I had a very good editor who understood that by the chapter that she needed to break up some of it so that it wasn't just so pressing on people. You know what I mean? Like, because you can only read so much of a terrible story before you put the book down and you're like, I'm done. I can't do this, right? So you
Right.
need to have you need to have something in the middle to break up some of it. So the stories go all over the place, but at the end, it all makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, like I had a very very good editor, and if she hadn't have done that, I had a feeling that a lot of people would have just probably read like the first 15 pages and just been like, well, this is all bull, or holy crap, I can't
Or
finish
it's
it.
too
You know what
dark,
I mean?
or it's too, yeah.
Yeah.
You broke it
So
up.
yeah,
That's
so
what
that's
I
what
did
she
with
did.
mine too. I broke it up with a love story.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. Yeah,
yeah.
and those are the things that help the reader. It was very hard writing the book, but I digress. So during that time, my mom had been convincing my older brother, that the reason why his dad left was because I failed the family, because um, I couldn't make him love the family like he could.
So
So that's the reason why. Yeah,
now she's encouraging him to abuse you. That
yes.
was the ticket right there. That
Yep.
was the start of it.
Yeah.
She's giving that child the green light to abuse
Yeah.
another child.
And there were times when he literally tried to kill me. Um, but then later on in the summer, his best friend took an interest in me, and his best friend was a year older than him, and that's when that's when my brother sold me to his best friend,
Oh my
and
God.
and that's when I was and that's when I
Awful.
was and that's when
Awful.
I and that's when I was raped from the ages of 6 to the time I was 9. And then at home, I was being beaten and mentally abused from the ages of 6 to 12, and then at 12 I had a growth spurt, and the physical abuse stopped, but the mental abuse got ramped up,
That's just
because
awful. And from 6 to 9, and you didn't even know what was going on. You were naive at that age. You're just very impressionable child.
well,
Did you ever think about trying to tell someone about it from the outside world at that point? Sorry for interjecting, but
no, no,
these
absolutely, no.
going through my mind.
It's a quite an ordinary. It's quite not an ordinary, but it's quite a common question, um, and that question is usually answered by this. Janine, I had no idea I was being abused. It was just Tuesday. I had no way of knowing that every 6-year-old in the country wasn't getting this done to them. I had
Because
no way
that's
of
all
knowing.
you knew. Were you sheltered? Were you trapped in a home? Were you homeschooled? What was going on? Let's get a
So,
little bit of a background here.
so I was continuously isolated, and I wasn't allowed to make friends. every morning. So every morning, my job was I had to be up at like 6 o'clock every morning to get my mom up for work, get my brother up for school.
To get your mom up for
Uh,
work. That's so, you're the parent. I
yeah,
feel like you were the parent here.
in a lot of ways, I was because I also had to get my brother up ready for school. I had to get breakfast done. I had to make sure all my morning chores were done. And then if I
And your
got that opportunity, what's that?
I'm so sorry for interjecting. Now, your brother, let's explain to the audience, is older than you, isn't that correct?
Yeah,
So
4
you're
years.
the little 6-year-old, 7-year-old getting your mom and your brother up.
Yeah. I was, for all intents and purposes, I was the household slave. Um, so I'd get up, get a breakfast ready, get all that stuff ready. And then if I had time, I could eat and get ready to go to school. So in a way, that kind of was like a forced isolation because nobody wanted to hang around the smelly, fat kid in school. I was ridiculed. I was made fun of. Nobody wanted to be around me. So I was continuously isolated. And even during that time, kids are not going to just randomly talk to other kids to be like, "Hey, are you getting raped every day?" Or you know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's the conversation kids have.
I think it's
So I,
interesting how most children, I'm sorry, I'm just making these comments, that most children who are being abused in the home are usually targets for being bullied.
yeah, well,
Feel like they're vulnerable prey, because
well,
that's
yeah,
what happened to me
well,
when it
and
too.
statistically proven that once a kid has been, once there is a victim of sexual assault and sexual abuse and stuff like that, there is a continuation of abuse throughout the rest of their life. Um, but so I was isolated very easily by my mother to where I wasn't allowed friends. I wasn't allowed to do anything outside of other than go to school, come back, do chores. When I got back home, my responsibility was to clean the house again, make sure that there were vacuum cleaner lines, make sure that the dinner was done, make sure that it was ready on the table for when my mom got home from work, make sure my brother was taken care of throughout the day, and then I was able to, after cleaning dishes at the end of the night, then able to go to my room and have some private time. But then, like, so my mom would call me into the living room. So, on a three cushion couch, this is just an example of the ridiculousness of it. On a three cushion couch, like you can sit on either side. Well, I'm in my room, which is in the other end of the house, and I hear my mom screaming for me to come into the living room. So I go into the living room and she's like, "Grab me the damn remote." I'm looking for it someplace far away, and she points to the other end of the cushion, and she's
Oh
like, "I
my
can't
god.
reach it. Give me the goddamn remote." So, I know that's kind of a little bit of a humorous story in some
I
regards, but
have to interject here for 1 second. So sorry about the interjections, but what I need to know this, was there alcohol involved in this, or is this her normal personality?
my mom did not
Normal
drink.
personality.
My mom did not drink a single lick. Never did drugs. Never did any booze.
Okay.
So this was just her.
Okay.
Um,
Got it. Just wanted to clear that up for the audience. Go ahead.
absolutely. So, I mean, like, so that's just, a way of a capstand on how ridiculous it got. You know what I mean? So, at 12 years old, she was, I just grew like a foot and a half, like foot and a half up, foot and a half wide. Um, I was incredibly strong because, like, uh, when in my fifth grade year, I started really fighting. I started being a bully myself. I started trying to take control, which is very common also. And I got in trouble. And for the entire summer, my mom had, so in the backyard, she had always wanted a Chinese garden with like little tiers and stuff. And so she got a full truckload of slate rocks dropped off at the house. And so for one summer, my entire job, to make up for getting in trouble at school, was to take one pile of rocks and put it with the other pile of rocks.
So you're in the yard and
Yep.
helping her. Go
So
ahead. Sorry.
so no, I really wasn't helping her. It was forced labor. My mom would have me take these big rocks and move one pile to the other pile, and that's what I had to do for the entire summer. Like that was my entire summer was moving a dump truck of load of rocks from one pile to the other. So I got really strong. Um, I grew up, got tall, got bigger, and my mom came at me with a broomstick one day, and she just nailed me. And I just looked at her. I was just like, and that's when the physical abuse had stopped. That's when my mom realized that this wasn't going to work. My brother realized that I wasn't the
Did you try to
easy.
retaliate at that point? When she had tried
No,
to attack you, did you try to block,
oh yeah,
defend yourself?
oh, yeah. It's a human reaction to try to block. You know what I
Right.
mean? But at the same time, I never tried to strike back because I was always afraid. You
The
know
con
how much worse could this get? You know what I mean? Like
right.
we have cast iron skillets. You know what I mean? So uh, so the physical beatings stop. I was less of an easy target for my brother. So those all stopped. But then my mom would say, so at 12, she threw me out for the first time, and I had to live in a shed for 3 weeks over by a park where I used to play boys club football. Um, then after that, it
You
was
I'm sorry, how old were you again? 12, 13?
12.
12 years old. Kicked you out of the house. You're in a shed at the
Mhm.
park.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So
What were you
then,
doing about food and, clothes and
well,
blanket?
clothes were just clothes. I wasn't too worried about what I was wearing. You know what I mean? It was just the way it was.
It was
Uh,
survival.
yeah, food, it was off the dependency of other people, lunches at school, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. I had got a friend who would, bring me some food every once in a while.
And no one
So, I mean,
saw called child services on your if they're giving you food and clothes, what was the reason you were telling them? What
well,
was
so, so what you got to remember, Janine, is that I'm almost 50. So this is going back in the 80s. We didn't talk about this stuff. You know what I mean?
well,
This stuff didn't we didn't report this wasn't reported to child divisional safety. I mean, like we didn't
a
this didn't
child
happen.
just kept to themselves. I get it. I was born in
Yeah.
1971. I mean, if someone was beating up if there was domestic violence going on, people just kind of turned the other way at that point. It's
Yep.
whatever was going on in somebody's household.
Yep.
I
So I mean, like for me, that was just the way it was. You know what I mean? And there were friends that I would get food from that I went to school with, or I would forage, and I could go fishing, I could do all kinds of stuff. But that was at 12 years old, and then
How long did that last?
how long? 3 weeks. But then I'd get back home, and she would be like, my mom always had like I tell people like I had the greatest. I had grade A mental abuse. Like I had like there is some like sub tier mental abuse, and there's what my mom did. She would tell me things like how lucky you were you weren't aborted. You know,
Oh my god.
stuff. Yeah, like telling me like you can leave, you can get thrown, you can get kicked out. So at 12, I started making money mowing lawns and shoveling driveways. That was my income. And so my mom started charging me $400 a month in rent
Oh,
at
to
12.
live in that household, you might as leave. Oh my god. Are you
So,
kidding me? Oh
so,
no.
I mean, all this stuff is going on. You know what I mean? And
Now let's
I was pretty
picture $400. How old are you at this time? You're mowing lawns. Basically, you would be working for free. You're just a kid, and you're at how old now at this point? 15?
12 to 13.
12 to 13. Now she wanted to start charging you rent at 12 years old?
Yep.
You might
So
as well leave.
So that's one of the things that I said to her was I was like, "Yeah, I could get an apartment for this." You know what I mean? And she was just like, "Well, go try." And so she knew no one was going to rent to a 12-year-old.
No one was gonna rent to a 12.
13.
12 years old, this started, she's charging you for rent. You're saying I might as well go to an apartment, but at the age of 12, who's gonna rent to you?
Yeah.
So you were in a catch 22.
Yep.
Um,
I had the money, but I couldn't go anywhere with it.
so all of that money that you're making is going towards her, that the abuser. Who
Yeah.
wants to pay an abuser money at
Yeah.
that age or any
Well,
age?
and then it gets better because even though my father left and we never really got much from then on, he was still diligently paying child support every month.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's getting
So,
money from the father and getting money from you doing lawns,
yeah.
$400 plus child support. And
Yeah.
back in the 80s, $400 is a lot of money for
And he was paying $409 a month for me.
Oh my god. That's awful.
Yeah.
That is awful. I mean,
So
really, you were a slave. You were a slave. So now you have to do your job,
yeah, she was
earn
raking
money,
in.
and you
She was
not need it. You're
she
working for
was she was raking it in on both sides of the entire thing. So, um, I get kicked out one more time. I'm 13.
were you
I
seeing
go,
I already know the answer to this question, but I just want to make sure you didn't see any of the fruits of the money that was tossed into the
no,
household account, right?
no, no. No, I still had
Extra food or clothes or what
no.
was
I
medical?
still had hand-me-down clothes. I still had shoes that had holes in them. I still had, I mean, like if I know how to sew buttons, I know how to do all this because I make sew patches because that's how I had to do my own stuff. Whereas my mom walked around with gold watches and my brother walked around with $300 cowboy boots. Um,
That's
so,
just awful. That just
it,
awful.
it was just the way it was. You know what I mean? And so at 13, she throws me out again, and I go and I find there's a group of friends that every once in a while we'd go get high. And so I knew these people. So they all had an apartment. There was like 9 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment in like one of the worst parts of Anchorage. And it was literally 3 houses down from the Hells Angels clubhouse.
Oh
And
wow.
so I ended up staying there for about 2 months and then went back home. Um,
2 months.
and
So tell
so
me about those 2 months there. Would you say it was a better environment? Like here you are with a bunch of drug addicts, and were they doing more than
some
getting
of my some of my most fond
drugs?
memories are from that time.
I'm sorry.
Some of my most fond memories are from that time.
Okay, so you had a better environment in spite of your surroundings than living in an abusive household.
Well, yeah, because like, so from the ages of 6 to, at this time, 13, anybody that had tried to touch me was either trying to beat me or rape me. And so
Oh
you
my,
develop pretty, you develop some pretty strong coping skills. And I always tell people when I talk to them, it's not paranoia if at one point in time in your life it was true, it's a coping skill, it's a survival skill. So it's not a mental health disorder, it's a learned behavior. And so during that time it was a better time because everybody around me wasn't trying to beat me or rape me, and we were just getting high, and we'd go bug the guy that worked at the Dairy Queen and get food, and we'd work at the bug the
it
guy at
was
the
a
Skippers
whole
and
normal.
get food.
It's a normal life,
Yeah. And so
which
that
is
was a good time.
just
The only reason I went back is because like cops were called because there were like 9 kids living in a 2-bedroom house. You know what I mean? Um, so I went back and stayed there till I was 15, and I'll never. It was probably the greatest night of my life. Um, so it was December 15th, 1989, like December 14th, 1989. My mom is driving me to school because I'd gotten kicked out of school so many times that I had to go to like this last chance student
At this
schools.
point, are you
And,
bullying school? Are you bullying in school? Is
oh
that
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So
known as that.
you're
I'm
enraged because of
Yeah.
all of the things that have happened to you,
Well,
and you're lashing out. Are you getting back at other kids that were picking on you before, that they were bullying you,
yeah.
or were you going after
Well, at
anyone
that
else?
point in time, I have a real hair trigger. I am like you can say three things to me, and if I don't agree with one of them, I'm whooping that ass. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like it's just the way.
wow.
So, um, I'm I'm just not a good person at that point in time.
You just didn't
Um,
know how to channel your anger is what it
well, yeah. So what makes it even worse, Janine, was my mom had this facade about like she's this struggling single mother of two boys and how she like all this and all how great she is and how she's keeping it all together. And so anytime somebody interrupted that facade, it was it was detrimental. So when I would get in trouble at school, it was like how dare I embarrass her, so on and so forth. And then it was either a beating or it was just mental abuse for days. But so one day, Mr. Russo pulls her to the side and he's just like, Brian's got a lot of anger issues. Maybe you should get him in martial arts. So she's working at this business where one of the owners of the business is an actual black belt in judo. So she tells the owner. The owner says, "Well, bring him to my school. We'll work with him, and maybe we'll give him some discipline." So what? Like later on, I'm thinking back on this, Janine, and I'm like, well, maybe if somebody stopped raping me and beating me, maybe my anger would have gone away.
right.
Um, so
It's
so I
justified
get taken to
rage is
yeah.
what it is, what it
So
was.
I get taken to martial arts school to judo, and I excel in it. So one of the
Awesome.
things that one of the things that was a benefit to me was that if it's something physical, I can do it. I am aligned that way.
Because of
If
the
it's
fuel.
something,
It's the fuel from the anger. The
yeah.
fuel
So
from the
I
anger is what
like
drives you.
I was very good at football. I was very good in martial arts. I was very good in boxing. You know what I mean? So I started judo at 10 years old, and that was part of my mom's facade. Again, like look at how much she does for her boys, right? So I excel. Like I went from white belt to orange belt in 6 months. I mean, it was just they were just like, what is wrong with like how is this kid doing this?
That's
So
great.
and I'm growing. I'm getting bigger. I'm bigger than all the kids, So when I tell you that I was not a good person, please know that I understand that now that I was taking my massive amount of strength, my massive skill set, and I was beating the crap out of people. I was doing stuff that I had no right to do. Like when people talk about shame and guilt over their past, those are the things I feel shame and guilt for, because even though at that point in time I was just surviving, I still feel like I did know better. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
never should.
Two
Yeah,
wrongs don't make a right. Excuse
yeah.
me.
And
Um, I need to interject something here about the martial arts.
Mhm.
Did that rectify the situation of you bullying and taking it out on people, or did it intensify it?
It
Because
intensified
now you have a weapon. Now you're a human weapon. It
it.
intensified it.
It
Okay.
intensified it to the point to where one of the things I feel the most guilty about. I was a freshman, and like the freshman hazing. Um, I was so big that nobody thought I was a freshman, so I would haze other freshmen. And one time I broke a kid's leg. You know what I mean? Like I was just that's how bad I was. So
Did this
um,
power also make you feel better because you knew that there was an there wasn't a shadow of a doubt that someone would hurt you again?
Well, part of the reason why I
I'm not
delved.
trying to justify beating
Yeah,
up
no,
other
no,
children here. I'm trying to get into your mindset right
yeah.
now.
Part of the reason why I delved into it so much, Janine, was because I knew if I acquired the skill set, no one was ever going to beat me or rape me again. Plain
Exactly.
simple. You
It
know
was
what I
a
mean?
it was your defense mechanism, really.
Well, because by the time I'm 13, I have made enough friends to know that what had happened to me was not right. I was starting to, and I'm not a dullard. I'm very intelligent, and so I was able to start putting stuff together. And so by the time I'm like fully 13, I'm starting to verbally fight back. So like this funniest stories. I love this story. So I'm just almost 14, and I take off, and my mom is like, you bring your ass home by 8:30. I'm like, whatever, and I just roll out. So I go out and I come back at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like I just stayed out. Like I was walking the streets, I was hanging out, we were getting high, all kinds of stuff. So my mom is just beside herself, pissed off. Just I walk in the door like nobody had got her up. So like all this, it's like just
God
irate.
forbid her son doesn't wake her up. Be a
Yeah.
parent,
And
people. Be a parent. What the
yeah.
hell? Talk about
So
okay.
so
Here.
so she's flipping out and she's just like, I told you back at 8:30, and just she's freaking out and she's like, you can get. I just looked at her and I said, you did not say AM or PM. And then I walked away.
Oh
So
my God.
so that's when it really started to dawn. Yeah. So that's when it started to dawn on her, like, oh hell, he
He's
knows
a
I can't
he's a
hurt him,
witch.
and he's smart. So that's when the continuous threats of like you can just get out, right? So
Oh, what? She
so
doesn't
December
want $100 anymore? She
So
wants
wait,
stuff.
Janine, it gets better. So so December 14th, 1989, middle of Anchorage, Alaska. I'm on the way to school, and she looks at me in the car and she goes, "When I get home, you're not going to be there." So I'm like, "Are you throwing me out?" She's like, "Yeah, I can't do this anymore." I'm
She
like,
can't do
cool.
it anymore. How about you can't
Yeah.
do it anymore?
So for some insane reason, I guess she thought that I was going to go to school and stay there. So,
Perfect,
like,
isn't this a perfect example of gaslighting? Like, she's gaslighting.
yep. So I'm like, she drops me
Amongst
off at the
other
school.
things,
And I
but
walk
yes,
her to,
gaslighting is one of them. Sorry.
yeah. So she drops me off at school, and I just watch her drive away, and then I just walk away from the school, and I go back home. I gather up some naive 15-year-old stuff for being on my own, and I had nowhere to go. So I ended up sleeping in an abandoned car at the end of a street
And let's
in
just
the
remind
middle of
people where
Alaska.
you are. You're in Alaska.
Yeah, Anchorage, and it was and unbeknownst to me at this time, but it's one of the coldest winters in Alaskan history.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so
Oh
I
my
got
God. Wait,
blankets, I got
wait,
some extra
wait.
clothes.
You're in a car. You've got covers, but the car isn't on, so you're not getting any heat from the car. I'm just
No,
trying to paint a picture for the audience here. I mean,
yeah,
this
no.
is
So that night, and please understand this. Like, this is not a call for pity. This is one of the greatest nights of my life.
isn't it sad
The
that
car.
you are in a car, you're freezing cold, but yet you're free from a child abuse.
And it seems to be the best choice.
It's just so sad that it had to come to something like that, and
Well,
that you through that.
for a lot of kids, it for a lot of people, it doesn't get even to that. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting in the car, and I'm literally not hyperbolically, not fictionally, like I'm literally almost freezing to death.
Oh,
It dawns on me this realization, and this realization is like I have three choices, and none of them are fun. All of them suck. You know what I mean? Like it was, I could go back home and beg to be let into this house where all this had happened to me, and then I'm going to go back and give them more ammunition to use against me that I couldn't even make it a single night. You know what I mean? And the other choice was just to let it go, just to die. You know, I mean, just go to sleep and know you're not going to wake up, and just let it go. And then the third one was just keep fighting. You know what I mean? Like let the anger warm you up. Let it just, don't let them dictate to you what the hell's going to happen, you know? And so that's what I chose. I chose, I chose to fight. I chose to not let them win.
good for you.
And yeah, you know, it was hard.
Good for you, but then you're freezing cold. So then what? Then after that realization.
So then after that, I was able to get up with some friends, and I started home hopping.
Okay.
That would sneak me in their room, stuff like that. And then at 16, I got a job at a Burger King working the overnight, and they let me work the overnight because at 16 I was already like 6 foot. Yeah, I was already starting to lose my hair because of the stress and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my
So
God.
who the hell? They're like, who the hell's going to think you're 18? You're not 18. You know what I mean? So I was able to work the overnight shift, and I got an apartment from a slumlord in the worst part of Alaska, Mountain View, and I paid 200. So this is the beauty part of it. I paid $250 a month, everything included. So if my mom had just, so like of that $400 a month I was paying my mom, I would
This
have
was
saved
black. Oh my God.
I would have saved $150.
Oh my
So,
God.
so
I'm laughing, but really, this is really pathetic of a parent to do something like this, and it really is making me angry. It
so
makes me angry.
so wait, it gets better. So I'm 16. I have my own apartment. Of course, I'm doing it like every 16-year-old in the world. Like I have, 500 people that are staying with me, and we're all, like all this kinds of stuff. And it comes to Thanksgiving, and the greatest, and it is, and I've said this a lot, but it was the greatest Thanksgiving I'd ever had because I started making Thanksgiving dinner at my mom's house at 7 years old. I made a turkey. I did some mashed potatoes. You know what I mean? Like very rudimentary, but still got it done. And for every year after that was my job. Like so, the first Thanksgiving out on my own, all the squatters and all the people all the hanger-ons, all went home. They all went to their prospective families, and I had nowhere to go.
Oh,
So the apartment I rented was furnished. So I had no money. I had no friends. I had nothing around me. And I was starving. So I went through every piece of furniture in the entire house, and I found $1.78. I walked down to the convenience store, and I bought myself a diet soda and a king size Snickers bar. And that was the greatest Thanksgiving ever because, like, it was all mine. You know
right,
what I mean? Like, and
right.
I was
Free,
not,
you free from child abuse.
yeah, I was,
And just because you have a turkey and all the fixings in front of you, or a roof over your head, or a nice king size bed, what does that matter when
when everything else is
Right. When you're being abused and you're being tortured. You were tortured
yeah.
as a
So
child. So none of those materialistic things mean anything.
yeah.
That
So that,
Snickers bar was everything to you.
so just to let you know, now 30 years later, every Thanksgiving I go buy a diet soda and a Snickers bar, and so the last 2 years I've done a really dietary cleanse. Like I haven't had sugar in years, and I haven't had a soda since 2011. So what I do now is I buy them and I give them away to somebody who needs them. Because like that's a continuation of that moment of that day. You know
Right.
what I mean? Of the greatest Thanksgiving I ever had.
You're still celebrating, but in a different, well, celebrating your liberation. Basically,
Yeah.
you're celebrating your freedom.
In a healthier way.
Right.
So then right after that, my brother leaves my mom's house and he's got nowhere to go. So guess where he comes to stay?
Your house.
Yep.
Oh my God.
So
And I'm curious, what happened next?
so like every abuse survivor, especially in the early age, they've shouldered the burden of the abuse. They've shouldered the responsibility. They've shouldered the shame and the guilt. So I let him come in. I was like, no, this is a great time for me to make up with my brother, and like I can show him that I'm actually a good guy and that I love the family, and all this. And so right after he moves in, my mom starts showing up at the house.
Oh no.
And then like in December, a month later,
Did he
my
ever
brother's.
apologize to you? I'm sorry to interject
Oh,
here. Did he ever apologize, acknowledge any of the abuse, understand it was abuse?
to this
Nothing.
day, to this
It was
day,
just that, like, you acted like nothing ever happened and continued the relationship.
yeah,
No
to this.
PTSD when he was over there, or
No, well, I mean, I've I have severe PTSD from severe traumatic events my entire life. So
right?
he's
So
never
it was
when
part
I
of the harm, and
yeah. So
he
when
was
I
just
got a so in my 20s I went to jail, and I was there for 7 days solitary confinement, and got out and went and found him again, and I confronted him about the abuse, and he was just like, "It didn't happen. I don't remember any of that." So
he
to
doesn't
this
remember.
day, my brother,
He has amnesia. How
yeah.
convenient is that?
So to this day, he still doesn't acknowledge it. But so about a month after my brother moved in, and it sounds weird, but it's
Twisted.
just the way
It
it
sounds twisted, but I
was.
understand it. So
So a month later, so it was in a the apartment I had rented was in a complex, all in a row, and we were in the fifth apartment. Um, in December, the sixth apartment, the one next to us, caught fire, and so we almost lost our home. And then they redo the other apartment, and the landlord is like, "Hey, do you guys want to move to another one over? It's brand new. We just redid it. It's a two-bedroom instead of a single bedroom.
okay.
Um, we'll move over there." So we
And
were
you're
like,
still
"Yeah,
with your brother at this point. You're still with
yep."
the brother. Okay.
Yep. And so we move over there, and a month later, my brother throws me out.
What?
Yeah,
History is repeating itself. That's why you can never let these people back in. You can
yeah,
forgive.
yep. Don't
Out,
let.
out
Yeah.
you go. And what was
So
mom doing? Was mom coming over there too?
no, no, she had because of my toxic attitude, she was no longer coming to the house. So
So now
I'm on
it's
the
on
streets
you
again.
again. Now it's on you again. But you were
Yeah,
willing to allow her inside your home
yeah. So
because you have a forgiving heart.
well, because I was still trying to be part of this family. I was
And
still
you're
I was still
looking for acceptance, and you're probably looking
yeah,
for, hey, can you finally see all I've done?
yeah,
I really made it. You were trying to
yeah.
maybe get a pat on the back.
I was trying to make amends because I
What?
felt that I had failed. So
Oh,
I'm on the streets again. I end up staying at some other people's houses.
I
Um,
I'm so sorry. I'm still stuck on this right now. It's just horrifying to know you allow this abuser inside your home. He sold you to his best friend. He abused you for years. You allow him in your house, and now he kicked you out of your own house that you worked so hard for.
yep.
I just wanted
so
to make a recap here, and it's just it's troublesome. It's
so
just heartbreaking.
so
Go,
wait.
go.
So wait. It gets worse. So I'm 17, almost 18. I'm on the streets again. I find a family that takes me in, and not to be sappy, but I fell in love. I fell in this girl. Um, so it's really kind of a cute story. So she's the daughter of the man that lets us stay at his house. She is 3 months younger than me. So we're sitting on her bed. We're just talking, and she she rolls over, Janine, and just kisses me, like just full on, like tongue deep in the back of my throat. Where I was just like, "What is going on?" Right? And so I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that I enjoyed it. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was forced, but it wasn't like unwanted. And so I later on, I was like, "Why did you just kiss me?" She's like, "Because I've been hitting on you for a month and you have not got it." I was just like, "Oh, okay." So basically, she just got tired of waiting.
Okay.
So I fall in love. I mean, and she's my first on a lot of things, right? And so, like every young, sappy kid that has never had any compassion in his entire life, the first person that shows him that compassion, he falls head over heels for. I mean, it's just deep. And she was really the wrong person for that to happen to. She had a lot of issues herself that she hadn't worked through, and was using boys as a medium to cover up her own issues. So, um, I'm 18, I'm in love. Um, I decide I'm going to marry this girl, and I'm just about to turn 19. I went out, to this day, it's still the most romantic thing I ever did in my entire life. She got kicked out of school at 17. She couldn't go to prom. She'd never gone to prom. So I had come into my dividend check. I had some money, and I rented a limo. I got her a prom dress.
Oh,
I rented a tuxedo. I got her flowers. I got like this huge white stuffed teddy bear, and I bought her a fire opal and diamond ring, and picked her up in a limo, took her to dinner, took her out dancing. Like this was her prom. Like I was going to give her prom.
prom.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I asked her to marry me. She said yes. And then I went and found my brother. He was working at a restaurant as a dishwasher. And I was like, "Hey, I want you to be the best man at my wedding." Because again, I'm still trying to reach for this validation. I'm still trying to find a family that I've never had. And my brother's like, "Yeah, sure, cool." So I leave there thinking I'm getting married. I leave there thinking I've got the best man. Now I got to put all this together. And I go out and hang out with a mutual friend of my brother's and mine by the name of John. And my brother disappears for 3 days. Like I have no idea where this guy is. And my buddy John disappears for 3 days. And so I don't have any idea of where like my brother's gone to. So on day 3, I run into John again. And I'm like, "Hey, have you seen Scott?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I dropped him off at Star's house like 2 or 3 days ago."
Oh no.
I was like, what do you mean you dropped him off at Star's house? He's like, yeah. He said that he got off work on Tuesday and said he wanted to go talk to your girlfriend, and that's where he's been for the last 3 days.
Oh my God. You're kidding me. And you were, here's your heart. Your heart is such a good heart. I mean, I don't care about what you've done in your past. I mean, yeah, I'm not encouraging people with anger issues to, hit other children. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that, you had justifiable rage. You just weren't channeling it in the right direction. And then you learned how to channel it in the right direction. But here you are. You've been abused by your brother. He sold you and you were raped repeatedly. I mean, the most cruel things possible that imaginable that can happen to a child. And then you finally make it on your own. He takes your apartment away from you. And now he takes the only person that you loved.
Yeah. And so this is in my book. So I confront my brother. So when I was 15, I would occasionally, break into a house and steal some stuff. And one time I broke into my mom's house and stole my brother's bicycle and stuff like that. Stuff I knew I could pawn to get money so I could eat. So I got out of, like I said,
from the money you were giving them when you were working. And I'm not saying stealing is right, but I'm saying you were a slave to that family. I'm sorry, I just go ahead, honey.
So
about that.
So I got out of jail, right? So I alluded to it earlier. I went to jail for a little while, then I got out, and I got away from that situation because I realized in jail that this could be my life. I found my brother. My brother was living with my dad, and so I confronted my brother. I was just like, "Why did you steal my fiance? Why is it you couldn't allow me to be happy? What the hell was that about?" Janine, this man looked across from me, across the little continent in the kitchen, and looked me dead in the face and said, "You stole my bike."
Oh my God. So it's all for a bike over a bike? You've got to be kidding me.
So my life, I wasn't allowed to be happy. That was that I wasn't allowed to be happy. And every reason that I wasn't happy was because of my own actions. And it justified everything they did.
It's awful. They were abusing you and justifying the abuse with that you're the problem. You're the root of why mom and dad got divorced. It was all your fault. And it all stems back to that.
And so that was really like the first 27 years of my life in a nutshell.
Let's go back to the girlfriend here. I don't want to let her off the hook.
Yeah.
Let's not let this one go.
Yeah.
She knew about your past. I'm sure you were intimate with her on an emotional level and told her about mom and brother.
Well, not really.
But not that. But still, this is still wrong. But I thought maybe she had that whole picture.
No, I really didn't. I'd only told two people. My best friend growing up, I told him. And it was really kind of funny because he kind of knew. He knew about the abuse. He didn't really know about the sex abuse. But he knew about the physical abuse because I met him when I was 12. So at 16, I get into this argument with my mom, and she says something stupid to me. And I was like, "You couldn't even protect me from getting raped." And she looked at me and she was just like, "Please don't tell me you have told that to anybody else."
What?
Yeah, so she was more worried about her reputation
than your well-being.
Yeah. So
which surprised me because that's how it was from the beginning, from the age of 12.
But
but it doesn't make it right. I mean, this is so wrong. It is so wrong.
but that interaction made the decision I wasn't going to tell anybody else, because that's how that happened. So nobody, I kept that stuff quiet for a long time.
Oh,
And also, and we got to remember too, is that I'm thinking everything I got, I deserved, right? Like
they conditioned
everything,
maybe, of course.
yeah, this was my fault, right? So, um, Star never knew all that. I'm sure she had an idea, but she never knew all that. Now, my
Right.
best friend,
Of it didn't give her a right to do what
yeah,
she
uh,
did.
yeah, there was wrong on both sides.
It's wrong on
But
both sides. But I was just thinking, in addition to that,
yeah,
did she have a background?
yeah. So my best friend knew I was being physically abused, because, like, so one time, you can't see it. If we were face to face, you can see it. I on this my index finger, I literally almost cut the entire tip off. And my mom was at work. It was spring break in Alaska. I had some friends over. We were all smoke some pot, stuff like that. And it was so bad that I needed to get stitches. So I'm like, hey, I need to call my mom. And the rest of the friends, and I say this in a derogatory way, but they were really good friends. But like cockroaches, they just poof, gone, right? They were just like, oh, you're calling your mom. I'm out, right? So Casey stuck around. My best friend stuck around. My mom gets home, and I am just dripping blood all the way down my arm. I got it compressed, but it's still just it was that bad.
And how old are
So
you at this point? How old? Sorry.
I was like 14. I was 14, just about
14.
to turn
Okay.
18. And my mom gets there, and she goes, "Go inside the house and clean up." So I'm like, okay. So I go inside. My best friend comes in behind me, and Janine, he says to me, "I got the dishes. You get the living room." Okay. So here he is. My best friend is conditioned by my mom to understand that when she says clean up, she means in order for me to go to the hospital, the house has to be clean.
Oh, that's so sad.
So we go inside, we start cleaning up. My mom comes back inside. She sees my best friend doing the dishes, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And we're like, "You said clean up." She said, "No, clean up your arm and get in the car." So like she had this nice, easy way to be like, "No, that's not what I meant. You're the asshole. You're the idiot. Get in the car." Um, but that's just an example of
I
like what.
mean, you were so conditioned all this time to be a household slave that it wasn't registering to you that she meant clean yourself up.
Yeah, that there was actually any concern.
Like she was actually going to take you to the hospital
Yep.
because of her dysfunction. Who knows what
And this is
doing?
and this is literally after, in the 5th grade, my appendix ruptured and I almost died because nobody would take me to the hospital. Yeah, like, so
Talk about
there was.
child neglect, child endangerment. The list goes on here.
Yeah, so the only thing that saved me from that was my aunt Becky. She was going to nursing school. She lived in Willow, Alaska, which was an hour away. And when she was in school in the college, she would come stay at my mom's house. So my aunt Becky left, came back, and I had the flu. Left, came back the next week, and I was even worse. And so she pulled out all the medical books and was like, "I'm bringing you to the clinic." And that's when I found out my appendix had ruptured that night, and I was lucky I was still alive.
So she
So
saved your.
like I probably still wouldn't have gone. I probably still would not have been able to go to the hospital if it wasn't for Becky. I probably would be dead.
What?
So that's just that was just the day in the life of, what I mean. It was just Tuesday. And that's one of the things I try to get out, and I make sure that people understand that, you know the unexpected victims about somebody that you would look at and just be like, there's no freaking way.